like an arms race. So, we put a mitigation in or a new piece of technology that stops a certain kind of attack, and then the attacker works out a way to go around it within 6 months to a year, typically, if they're really good.
Yeah.
And that's just going to get faster with the advent of AI based technologies for the attacker. And they're going to be able to do more, and they're going to be able to do it faster.
We are an asset management consultancy firm, and we see a lot of organizations who have shadow IT and unmanaged assets, and it really impacts their security posture, essentially. So what can CISOs do to address that? How can CISOs get full control over their software estate? Basically, how would you go about that? What advice would you give to CISOs, basically, on this matter?
Yeah. First of all, have that aspiration to gain full control over everything, because I think it is an aspiration for many organisations, unless you're in a particularly sensitive sector, like a tier one finance sector, bank or something like that, or obviously the MOD or defence in general. So have that aspiration to gain visibility over everything and be confident you know what's on your network and what is there, and then it's about observability. So the first part really is asset management, gain visibility of what you've got. And the second part is observability over what is that stuff you've got doing and what's it talking to. So I'll give you some examples. I won't talk about specific technologies, but we have a micro-segmentation platform at the AA, and it's designed to stop or limit lateral movement. And it makes it much harder for the attacker to move around undetected. And again, it's not foolproof. We're not perfect, but it's a good bit of kit. When we've been trying to get better at asset management since I joined, right? So when we started, it was on a spreadsheet. It was partially true. I think, we've invested quite heavily in specific technologies to get better at asset management. And what we found is you have to pull data from multiple sources. Running a discovery scan on your network isn't necessarily going to give you everything. So it might give you most of it. It won't tell you what this stuff's talking to, though. So the micro-segmentation platform we brought in, once we started running that discovery tool, it was very different technology, but started filling in a lot of gaps in terms of what our assets were and what they were doing. So what they were talking to. And, this is when you start seeing communications are a bit odd. You start seeing communications that are talking to the Tor network, the onion router network, which is typically used for file sharing or nefarious activities. Or dark web. People refer to it as dark web. But you start seeing, occasionally that where an agent's been installed or something years ago by an employee rather that they really didn't know what they were doing. Perhaps might be malicious. Who knows? So you can start to take that down and prevent that from egressing the organisation. Obviously, you can do this at the firewall as well, but there's multiple places you can do it. You also start seeing communications you don't expect with, servers in universities in all over the world. So, and you can start limiting your attack surface effectively in terms of what your systems are talking to, and limit them to the business systems they should be talking to, and isolating them much more effectively.
Yeah.
So obviously that's all great. And on top of that, we do vulnerability scanning every month. We do penetration testing. We do red teaming. We do purple team. We do lots of stuff. But you need a way to aggregate that view. And if you haven't got a good asset management approach, you're not going to be able to centralize all of that data and then make informed decisions.
Yeah.
So getting across asset management is absolutely vital and
it's central to everything, isn't it?
You can't get secure without asset management being in place and being effective.
Yeah. No, very well said. How does AI change this, Darren?
I don't think it changes it vastly. I think it changes the velocity of an attack. But equally, if we as an industry get on the front foot with this, we can change the velocity of the defence as well to match it. And that's always been the case, right? It's like an arms race. So, we put a mitigation in or a new piece of technology that stops a certain kind of attack, and then the attacker works out a way to go around it within 6 months to a year, typically, if they're really good.
Yeah.
And that's just going to get faster with the advent of AI based technologies for the attacker. And they're going to be able to do more, and they're going to be able to do it faster. So similarly, as an organization, you're going to have to be able to do more and do it faster. So it's about investing in the right types of defensive technology to match the threat. So if you've done a decent threat assessment on your organization and against your assets, because you now know your assets because you've got good at asset management, you do a threat assessment against those crown jewels, as it were, and then you move your defensive posture accordingly. You orient it towards the threat. So I think putting the castle and moat sort of model up from years ago, I think that idea is long gone now. I don't know how that would work in a modern environment.
So what's the biggest challenge you faced at AA, Darren, since you've been there from a cybersecurity standpoint?
Yeah. So I think it's there's a number, but the biggest one is people. But I'll go back and tell you about the other ones and how I.
Sorry, can you just unpack that? When you say people, do you mean the skills shortage, not having people suitably trained and qualified? Okay.
People generally.
Oh, right. Okay.
So, and again, I mean this is the dollop of love, but so historically, the AA had been underinvested in, and our share price wasn't doing very well for various reasons. The IT function as a whole had been cut to the quick, and that included the security function. As I mentioned, that it was tiny when I first joined, and the tooling was, badly thought out, badly deployed, wasn't really doing much apart from consuming power. So the biggest challenge was articulating that security is not a standalone activity to my colleagues, my peers, the board, the exec, and everybody in between. Security is not a standalone activity. You don't just get a security guy in and they come and fix all the stuff. It's a team effort across the board. Whether it's the lady on the front desk looking after reception, we've had a couple of ladies that have been with us for decades, looking after front reception in Basingstoke, for example, and they're literally the gatekeepers of the building. So whether it's somebody on the front desk or whether it's somebody who's an administrator on a really sensitive system, it's a team effort. So it's about having policies and standards that reflect reality, so that they're not just downloaded off the internet, replace this company with that company and push your policies out, get a certification, you're off to the races. It's not about that. It's about ensuring that the policies and standards you create are articulated in a way that your end users can understand. And if they're not reading them and don't understand them, then you've failed right from the outset. You're not going to get secure in any way, shape or form. So it's about communicating those standards, engaging with the stakeholders at all levels in the business. Say, look, this is a security standard. These are mandatory and this is what I expect of you. And then testing that. Yeah. So this is where frameworks really come into play, because we're ISO 27001 certified. It doesn't necessarily mean we're secure, okay? Because compliance does not equal security, as anybody who works in this field will tell you. What it's about, though, it's about getting people used to producing evidence that they are doing the right thing on a regular basis. That's where the real value comes in. And probably even the ISO people would tell you that. So we run a number of different standards for very good business reasons across different parts of the company. And, that's helped change the security culture as much as anything. But and this is why I say the biggest challenge is people. It's not because they're bad at what they do or they're doing the wrong thing necessarily, or with the wrong intent, should I say. Yeah. But they've just not been told what's right. And it's very difficult to do that when you've got a project that's, finite in terms of resources and time. And then you've got to add security into the mix as well, and I think users expect security to be built in regardless of any effort they put into it. And that's the sort of culture we're trying to change. We're a good way down the road there with certain parts of the business. Some parts got a bit catching up to do. But the people element is critical. And I think organisations pay it lip service.